Hello everyone. So in this video we will see some mathematical expressions for the torque developed in an induction motor. So when I was explaining about the working principle of induction motor, we have said that torque is generated in the rotor. So let me quickly review how the torque is generated. So what is the construction of induction motor? You have the stator. I denote the stator by this stator frame. So let's say this is the stator of the induction motor. Now what does the stator of the induction motor contain? So it contains some three-phase windings. So three-phase windings. So to indicate three-phase winding, let me draw three terminals A, B and C. So to these three terminals, I connect the three-phase supply. The moment a three-phase supply is connected, so connected to three-phase supply. The moment three-phase supply is connected, a rotating magnetic field is set up inside the stator. So this is the air gap. Inside the air gap, a rotating magnetic field is set up. The effect is as if there is a north pole here and there is a south pole here, and this north pole is rotating and south pole is rotating at the speed of ns, okay, the synchronous speed. So although the stator is fixed to the ground here, the stator winding is also stationary, but the effect of a three-phase current flowing in the three-phase winding here is that equivalent north pole and equivalent south pole is rotating. If it is a two-pole winding, if it is a four-pole winding, there will be two north poles and two south poles. All that you have already seen in the previous videos. Now what is the value of ns? Ns is 120 F by P. So this also you have seen. F is the supply frequency and P is the number of poles of the supply. So now these lines which I am drawing, these lines are the magnetic flux lines going from north pole to south pole, which themselves are rotating. Now if I keep the rotor, okay, so the rotor consists of squirrel cage rotor. So these are all rotor copper bars which are all short circuited. So current can flow from any copper bar to any copper bar. So under these conditions, let's say initially the rotor is at standstill. So if the rotor is at standstill, we'll say slip is equal to 1. So if you again recollect the definition of slip, slip is nothing but ns minus nr divided by ns. Okay. So if nr is 0, slip is ns by ns, that is 1. Ns is synchronous speed, nr is the speed of the rotor, the actual speed of the rotor. So at standstill nr is 0, so therefore slip is 1. Now under standstill conditions, how the torque is generated? The lines of magnetic field are cutting the conductors, so the conductors experience some EMF that is induced in it, and that EMF induced will circulate some currents in the winding in the copper bars of the rotor, and that current will result in the another principle, that is current carrying conductor placed in a magnetic field will experience a force. As a result, small torque is generated. All this we have seen in the working principle of the induction motor, and therefore the rotor starts rotating. So when slip is 1, so torque is TST, the starting torque. Now as the torque is generated, the rotor starts rotating and the NR starts increasing, therefore the slip starts decreasing. And when NR equal to NS, then the NR equal to NS, the numerator here is 0, so the slip will become 0, and under 0 slip condition the torque is also 0, and again the rotor slows down. All these things you have seen. So finally the rotor settles at some speed NR which is less than NS, and this reduction in the rotor speed with respect to synchronous speed is called slip, and slip is typically about 3% to 5%, and then based on that the induction motor works. So this was the review of the how the torque is generated in an induction motor. Now the question is, what is the expression, what is the mathematical equation for the torque generated in an induction motor. So let's continue with that. So if you generally go back to DC machines, so the torque is proportional to the product of flux and current. So in fact, if you even go a little bit more fundamental, you can say force experienced by a current carrying conductor is proportional to B, L and V, okay, or where V is the speed, or BIL. So I we are using in the case of motor principle. Here you see the L is the length and I is the current and B is the flux density, flux per unit area. So basically force is proportional to flux and current. That's what I have written here. Why I am saying torque? This is a linear force, whereas in a motor, two forces will act opposite each other around a fixed point, so it becomes a torque. So the point is, torque is proportional to flux into current, phi into I. This is in the case of DC machines and also in the case of AC machines. The thing is, in DC machines, flux is constant, current is also constant, like constant in the sense it is unidirectional or DC current. Whereas in the case of AC, torque is proportional to product of flux and current, but these are now vectors. Okay? So flux is an alternating flux and current is an alternating current. Now why am I saying flux is alternating and current is alternating? Because the supply itself that is given is an alternating supply, and the magnetic field itself is sinusoidal magnetic field. Therefore the flux is sinusoidal and the EMF induced is sinusoidal, and the current generated in the rotor is also sinusoidal. So now because there will be a phase difference between these two AC quantities, so the torque can be nothing but flux into current into cos of phi r or phi 2. Phi 2 is the denotation. Similarly, phi I2, this is current in the rotor, and then flux is the constant one, flux that is actually generated by the stator. Not constant, it's a alternating flux. Okay, so I2 is rotor current. See, 2 is a subscript used for rotor, 1 is a subscript used for stator. So for example, I1 will be the stator current I per phase, I2 will be the rotor current per phase. Similarly, cos phi 2 is the or phi 2 is the phase angle. Now you might get a doubt, why am I saying phases and all these things? This is just a copper bar, squirrel cage copper bars which are short circuited. So naturally, actually what happens is, because the rotor is having a three-phase windings, three-phase EMFs will be induced in the, because stator having three-phase induced EMF will be there in the rotor. So therefore we have phases in the rotor also, even though it is a squirrel cage. So let's come back to it. So now I want to further simplify this. Okay? So now what is flux proportional to? So flux is proportional to EMF induced in the rotor. Okay? So let's denote that as T proportional to E2 I2 cos phi 2. Okay? So the torque is proportional to this. Now the E2 is EMF induced in the rotor per phase, I2 is the current in the rotor per phase, and cos phi 2 is the power factor of the rotor per phase. So, and it's a three phase. Now, what is the unit of the RHS? Okay, so if you look at the unit of the right hand side, voltage into current into factor. So this is the having the unit of watts. So you know that voltage into current into cos of this one is the active power, watts. So the torque is proportional to the active power that is flowing in the rotor. Now what is the constant of proportionality? Now this is watts, this is per phase. So the constant of proportionality, let's say T equal to K1 into E2 I2 cos phi 2. So what is the value of K1? So K1 turns out to be 3 by 2 pi ns. Okay. So why only this quantity 3 by 2 pi ns? It is nothing but just to match the units. See, torque into omega. Torque into omega is nothing but the unit will be watts. So what is omega? This is angular velocity. Okay, so radians per second, and then torque, I think it is newtons per radian or Newton meters or something like that. That will be the unit of torque. Finally, you know that torque into omega is nothing but having the unit of watts. So what is omega here in this case? So 2 pi ns, because 2 pi into number of revolutions. By the way, not the capital Ns, I'm sorry, it is a small ns. Okay, so 3 divided by 2 pi small ns. Okay, small ns is nothing but synchronous speed in RPS, revolutions per second. Okay, so whereas capital Ns is synchronous speed in RPM, revolutions per minute. So naturally, small ns is capital Ns divided by 60. So you will get it. Okay. So now what is the expression for torque? So torque is nothing but 3 pi 2 pi ns. Okay. The small ns multiplied by E2 I2 cos phi 2. So torque into omega. So omega is nothing but 2 pi ns. So that is coming here. What about this 3? Because it's a per phase, it's a 3-phase machine. So this is a factor of 3. Okay, so let's call this as equation A. Okay, so let's further develop on it. Okay. So now I go back to my previous equation here, that is torque is proportional to E2 I2 cos phi 2. So torque is proportional to E2 I2 cos phi 2. I have just removed the constant of proportionality for the time being. So now I want to further develop it. Okay, so what is I2? Okay. So I2 is the current flowing in the rotor. So if I denote E2 as the sinusoidal voltage source, and then there is a R2 resistance and then X2 reactance. So R2 is the resistance per phase of the rotor, X2 is the reactance per phase. So I should use JX2. Now, why not capacitors? Because if you look at, it's a winding at the end of the day. So a winding will have inductance and resistance. Now, are these values fixed for a given machine? Yes. If you are using a squirrel cage induction motor, R2 is fixed and X2 is fixed. Whereas if you are using a wound rotor induction motor or slip ring induction motor, in that you can introduce external resistance. So we will come to it. For the time being, because we are discussing a squirrel cage induction motor, R2, X2 are fixed. So what is I2 in this? So first of all, Z2 is the per phase impedance of the rotor. So that is nothing but R2 square plus X2 square under root. So I'm just showing you the magnitude of Z2. What about cos phi 2? So power factor of the circuit. So power factor you know is R by Z. So I get R2 by Z2, that is nothing but R2 by square root of R2 square plus X2 square. Okay. So what is I2 here? I is nothing but EMF divided by impedance. Okay, so E2 divided by Z2, simple Ohm's law. So there is nothing but E2 by square root of R2 square plus X2 square. Okay, so I put J here, or if I am just worried about only the magnitude, I need not put J. Okay, so I'm not worried about magnitude, so forget about J for the time being. So now coming back to my torque, so I will eliminate I2 and cos phi 2 and then express in the terms of this. Okay, so what I'll get it? So torque is proportional to E2, and in the place of I2 I will write E2 divided by R2 square plus X2 square under root, and multiplied by, in the place of cos phi 2 I will write R2 divided by square root of R2 square plus X2 square. Okay. So finally what is torque? Torque is proportional to E2 square R2 divided by R2 square plus X2 square. Okay. So here again I am getting another expression, that is torque is proportional to this. So let me see whether we can further simplify this. So I can always go back and then introduce this constant of proportionality into it. So because we have just calculated the constant of proportionality also, so let me write it here. Torque is equal to 3 by 2 pi ns, small ns, multiplied by E2 square R2 by R2 square plus X2 square. Okay. So this is a torque. Now this is a torque when? This is the torque at the starting. Okay. Because what is happening is here all the values that we are considering, E2, I2, they are all nothing but EMF induced in the rotor when the rotor is standstill, when the slip is 0. Okay. So this is the expression for starting torque of an induction motor. Okay. Now shall we make a quick comments about what are the, how to increase or decrease starting torque. Okay. So for example, consider that R2 is very small compared to X2. In fact, which is the case, because the squirrel cages have very thick copper bars and the resistance is very small. So if R2 is almost 0, okay, very very close to 0, the starting torque is 0, therefore the motor will never start at all. Okay, the motor is always remaining stationary. So definitely some small resistance is required for some small starting torque to be present. Whereas if X2 is very high, again the R2 will be less. Okay, so basically what I am saying is R2 is high, starting torque is high, whereas X2 is high, starting torque is low. So therefore it is desirable to have for high starting torque, R2 should be high and X2 should be low. Okay. So this is a one quick observation we get from this. Now what about I? So if I just go back here, the current is nothing but E by Z. So if resistance is low, then the current is also very high and the power factor is also very poor. Okay. So these are all things. Because the power factor is poor, the torque is also poor. Okay. So I think this is the expression that we are aiming for, and we got this expression about the starting torque of induction motor. Let us quickly maybe spend some more time on condition that how to get maximum starting torque. So how to get maximum starting torque? Okay. So simply we can differentiate this expression and equate it to 0. Basically I want to find the maximum. Assuming that, see, what are the variables in this? Okay. R2 is fixed, I said, X2 is also fixed, and E2. So what is E2? E2 is the EMF induced. How do you control EMF induced? By changing the supply voltage itself. So if I go back, this three-phase supply voltage, if I increase or decrease, I can control how much EMF is induced in the rotor bars. Okay. So but then for this discussion, let's assume that E2 is constant. Okay. Let V supply is constant, therefore E2 is constant. Now but then let R2 be variable. Now you might ask a question, how R2 can be variable? And R2 can be variable in the following way. You have a different rotor. Okay, so the different rotor, not a squirrel cage rotor. So this is the stator having three-phase winding as usual. Now the rotor is also having a three-phase winding. Okay, so it is just having a three-phase winding, something like this. Sorry for the bad diagram. So this rotor will have 3 conductors coming out of it. But then this is the rotating part. How do we have 3 wires hanging out of a rotating machine? So what happens is on the shaft, forget about these lines, this is all a winding. On the shaft there will be 3 slip rings. Okay, the rings which are also fixed to the shaft. Now the first winding is connected to first ring, the second winding connected to second ring, and the third winding connected to third ring, and the other ends of the windings are star connected. So we have a 3-phase star connected rotor. Then what I can do, I can put brushes on top of the 3 slip rings, and I can have a variable resistance system, something like this. So this is variable, this is variable, this is variable, and then I can connect them to the brushes. Okay. So if I short circuit all this, if I make it R equal to 0 here, then I am short circuiting on both ends. Therefore, this is effectively equivalent to squirrel cage. But then if I don't short circuit, I introduce some small resistance, then I have all these resistance will add in series with the windings, and therefore it becomes a variable R2. Okay. Under that conditions, I want to maximize the starting torque. Okay. So what is the expression for starting torque? Here we have derived that. So just differentiate it with respect to R2. So TST differentiation with respect to R2. So we have some constant of proportionality. Okay, so 3 by 2 pi ns is as it is. Now E2 is also constant, so E2 square I am just keeping it, d by dr2 of R2 by R2 square plus X2 square. Okay. So how do we differentiate this quantity? Okay. So we can differentiate this quantity, so this constant remains the same. Now I can write it d by dr2 R2 multiplied by 1 by R2 square into X2 square. Sorry, R2 square plus X2 square. So this is differentiation of U into V. So differentiation, differentiation of UV is nothing but du into V plus U into dV. So that UV rule I will apply here. So this constant remains the same. Differentiation of R2 is 1 multiplied by R2 square plus X2 square. This is one term. Now taking the second term, R2 is anyway there. Now because R2 square plus X2 square having if I bring it to the numerator, it will have minus 1. So minus 1 will become the coefficient, and then R2 square plus X2 square whole square will become the differentiation. All of this should be equated to 0 because I want to find the maxima. So because this is a constant, I will cancel because on the other side there is 0, and therefore these two should be equal. Now 1 by R2 square plus X2 square is equal to R2 by R2 square plus X2 square whole square. Now this term if goes here, the square gets cancelled. So finally I'll get an expression something like, I think I'll get a 2R2 also here. I have to once again differentiate this one with respect to R2. So 2R2, so 2R2 square will be here, and then finally the term that I get, I'll write it here. So that is R2 square plus X2 square should be equal to 2R2 square. Okay. So R2 square will get cancelled again. Therefore finally R2 square should be equal to X2 square. This is or R2 equal to X2. This is condition for maximum starting torque. Okay. So I think enough of mathematics. So I have started off by explaining that the objective of this video is the expression for torque. Then I given a quick review of how the torque is generated. Then we went to the principle of torque proportional to flux and current, and therefore I have just written down in the case of our analysis what is it, and we got one expression for torque, but then we are not happy with this expression. We want to further analyze this expression. So I substituted for what is I2 and what is cos phi 2. When I do that, this is a simple secondary circuit I am getting, or the circuit of the rotor I am getting. From that I get what is I2 and cos phi 2, and then I substitute them and simplify them. Finally I get this as the equation. So I think let's call this equation B, which is the main thing for our video. Okay, that is the starting torque expression. Then we further analyzed it. We said that for high starting torque R2 should be high, and then how to get maximum starting torque. I have just explained about the slip ring induction motor, in which there is a facility to add additional resistance to the rotor circuit, and thereby I can increase the starting torque of the machine. And simple differentiation and then equating to 0 gives this condition for maximum starting torque. I think with this I'll end this video, and we will try to look at some problems to understand exactly how the torque is calculated for a induction motor. Thank you.